So fine Vikings offensive coordinator slash head coach of the offense, Gary Kubiak, spoke to the media Jackals this afternoon. Going to go through a couple of the highlights on padded practice eve. Of course, Gary Kubiak's very giddy about that, as well as thinking back, I actually didn't remember hearing Gary Kubiak talk, but he sounds exactly like Hank Hill. All right, so Kubiak from Houston, East Texas, Arlen is set in that area, so it makes sense. Damn it, Bobby, we need to sell outside zone and outside zone accessories. Yeah. So asked about the offensive line, Pat Elflein moving to right guard. Kubiak said this quote: "We just took a look at it this offseason. I'm good at reading. That's somewhere where Pat has had comfort zone before in his football life. We talked about that. And obviously, we have competition going on for the other guard. Just a decision we made talking through the process with Pat." End quote. So now it does make sense, as we outlined. If you combine college and NFL, Elflein actually has way more experience at right guard as opposed to left guard. He was All-American at right guard in 2015. So if it does make sense, and if he's able to salvage the career of Pat Elflein, awesome. He's in a contract year, so great. And also, if it opens the door for Ezra Cleveland going in, yeah. Also, he did mention Drew Samia potentially working at left guard, even though he was exclusively a right guard in college. So flippy flop, snip snap. Yeah. Next up. Sticking with the offensive line. So he was asked about getting the O-line together ASAP, because Zimmer talked about the decision on who the starting five is going to be is going to come together very quickly. Kubiak expanded on that. He said, quote, "Like anything else, the more people work together, the better they play together. Without preseason games, you kind of have deadlines, points where you make decisions as you look to opening day. This is going to be a grinder week. Got a lot of football practices this week. A ton of reps, so everybody is going to get a good hard look. We'll get our pads on throughout the course of this week, so we should be able to take a good look at what's going on," end quote. So now, yes, without preseason games, it is going to be different, and Kubiak expanded on the differences on that a little bit later on. But also with the offensive line, he's right. Like, the offensive line is the only position group in football where the same personnel is tried out every single down, every single situation. Like, it's very odd. Like, well, we're not talking about like when you have that 6 offensive lineman or run on balance, but in general, like there isn't a nickel offensive line, right? There isn't a passing situation offensive line or a running situation offensive line. It's weird. So that chemistry, trusting the man next to you, as well as on both sides, if you're an interior offensive lineman, it's all important, right? So getting as many reps as possible in this weird ass offseason, it's gonna make sense. It's gonna be very important for the Vikings, especially if you have some moving parts. So it does seem like Reef, Bradbury, O'Neal, they're going to be stuck. So the 2 guard spots are in the air, and Pat Elflein may be moving from the left guard to the right guard spot. Well, actually, it sounds like that's cemented in. So it does make sense that, hey, this is where we're going to try it out September 13th against Green Bay. We have X number of days of practice. We have X number of reps. We're going to make sure that these 5 get as much work in as possible. And it does make sense. And as well, if this is a normal offseason, and if there's some offensive line questions, it probably would have been sorted out by the 3rd preseason game at the latest, since that is the dress rehearsal. Like, starters in general don't play in the 4th preseason game. So talking about timelines, we can get a jump on that, as the first preseason game was supposed to be last Friday against Houston. It does make sense to where we're at as of right now. Asked about rookie first round pick Justin Jefferson, he said this quote: "He's exactly what we drafted. We knew he was a very talented young man who had a comfort zone in the slot because he did that a lot. I'm playing him a little bit everywhere, teaching him our offense, understanding schemes of what we're doing. A very good route runner, very knowledgeable. He was coached by some great coaches before he got here," end quote. So, yeah, Justin Jefferson is going to be living up to the hype, and we talked about that. If the Vikings want Justin Jefferson to contribute early, having him work from the slot where he's had a ton of success does make a lot of sense early on. But I do like the idea of Kubiak expanding his role instead of just the slot, having him work the X, having him work the Z, having him learn all position spots. Because eventually the Vikings do project Justin Jefferson to be an alpha dog, to be that guy who eventually takes the mantle from Adam Thielen as your wide receiver 1 on this team. And if you're just working from the slot, that just makes you Michael Thomas. That makes you a punk B. Yeah, get out of here. So I'm pretty hyped about Justin Jefferson. But also, so Kubiak did mention that BC is in front of him. So does that mean that BC is getting some more reps with the ones? I guess we'll find out as practices start being attended more by media, as well as, of course, they're live streaming their practice on Monday. But I thought that was an interesting nugget to put in there because, I mean, BC Johnson, he had a phenomenal year last year for a 7th-round pick, and I don't think he's exactly going to roll over and let Justin Jefferson take his role. But also, Kubiak did mention that there's going to be 4 wide receivers that will get some work on game day, right? So you got Thielen, obviously, you got BC, you got Justin Jefferson. Who's that last one going to be? Could it be Alexander Hollins? Could it be Chad Beebe? He had some nice words about Chad Beebe. Just got to stay healthy, as well as Tajay Sharp working on them there. So even though the Vikings probably going to run a lot of heavy formations, they're probably not going to carry 6 wide receivers as they've done in previous seasons. But, I mean, the guys who make the roster, the guys who are active on game day at wide receiver, like, they're going to play. They're going to be involved. Also, the other guard spot, so he talked about it's currently Dakota Dozier as well as Aviante Collins working with the ones. He mentioned Aviante, a.k.a. AC. Makes sense. Extremely athletic. Unfortunately, they got hurt last year, so I think that competition is a legit competition. I don't think they're just necessarily going to hand it over to Dozier. Also, he mentioned that Drew Samia potentially working on the left guard spot. On CJ Ham, Pro Bowl fullback, the pride of Duluth/Augustana University. Kubiak loves his fullbacks. You think about like Howard Griffith in Denver. You think about Vonta Leach in Houston. And so Gary Kubiak does love using the fullbacks, as well as he mentioned. So CJ Ham, getting some work at tailback in certain personnel packages. And that makes sense because CJ Ham started as a tailback before he converted to fullback here at the Vikings, ran for a bazillion yards at Augustana. So in some single back sets, some short yardage, or even down in the goal line. CJ Ham at running back, and then put, well, I would have said Michael Pierce at fullback, but then now, I don't know, Shamar Stephen? Armand Watts. Armand Watts at fullback? Nailed it. Yeah. Also, you talked up Irv Smith Jr., how even though he's still young, he is really coming up, and he's a very mature route runner. A lot of value at that F tight end spot. And also, it was brought up, so the value of the F tight end as well as the Y tight end. So you think about Y tight end, it's more, think of traditional, like Kyle Rudolph type tight end. F, moving all over the place, a.k.a. Joker, a.k.a. move tight end. So you can be out wide, you can be in the slot, you can be at H-back, and do all that stuff. So that's Irv Smith. Kyle Rudolph is more of a Y, and he hyped up the entire tight end room. As well as Irv Smith learning the craft of tight end from Kyle Rudolph. It is really massive as well. And then also, lastly, he talked about, so the challenges of this training camp, no preseason, but you're getting a lot of practice reps. He mentioned that it's usually 300 reps a day that you have to go through, 150 a walk through, 150 afternoon practice. So that is a lot of tape to go through. It's not as nice as a preseason game where everything is under the lights, but I mean, the guys are getting in work, and you are going to see some separation. He mentioned that everyone looks good at the start of training camp, but once you get the pads on a couple days in, it starts grinding. Then you find out who's going to be able to work through attrition, who does great when they're tired, when they're hurt, when they're this, when they're that, when they're exhausted, right? And that is who is going to step up and be the leaders on this team, as well as some of the bottom of the roster guys. As well as they mentioned that they're already adding some young player reps exclusively at the end of some periods. So even though that these bottom of the roster guys, the late round picks, the UDFAs, the free agents, even though they don't have preseason games to show off their wares, they are getting some opportunities to show up because everything is filmed at practice and everything gets reviewed and scrutinized just as much as they do in a game. So yeah, I mean, Kubiak, I'm fired up, man. Kubiak, like he talks like this old, wise, like a dad, and they're just like, he's going to get things done. I mean, this man won a Super Bowl as a head coach. How blessed are we to have him as offense coordinator? It's going to be good. All right, but your thoughts, highlights, Kubiak's press conference, let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support that work, pull some of the Venmo. But until next time, Skull, production value.